thanks for watching, and keep tuned. And like Alex said, we're gonna. I can't do that.
Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you've all stayed safe and well. We're actually able to work on the Defender again as lockdown slightly eased here. The reason you can only see me is Lewis is behind the camera 2 meters away from me. So I'm going to hand it over to Lewis, who's going to tell you all about what we're doing today.
So today guys, we're going to start welding some of the rust that's all over the vehicle. So we've got the cross member that got delivered. And I'm going to show you the areas that we're going to cut out and replace with some steel plate. So you might remember from some of our old videos, we've got this area here which has completely blown. Our plan is to cut along here, try and cut this shape out as neat as we can all the way back. May need to take these brackets off so that we can get right in here, because there is a little bit of blown area back there. It's all completely rot, so we're going to cut that out. We've also got the rear cross member got delivered. We've gone for the longer type. So if you remember when we were giving it some primer, we stopped there. So we're going to cut this back as far as we can, but leave just enough on that we can slide the new one over the top to give us a nice joint. So later on we'll be putting the tub back on, and then yeah, shutting this back on.
Previous videos, you'll remember we did real battle trying to get this A-frame off when we were going to take the axles off. We've realised when we replace this rear cross member and legs, it's probably best that the axle isn't able to roll out from underneath the chassis. So I've got some new bolts and we're just going to nip this up quickly to hold the axle in place whilst we work. We've managed to get our first piece out of here. The chassis is so many layers thick, more than we expected, but it is good news in that here we've still got about 2 layers of thickness. You can see that it's rotten here, and then as you work your way up there's more and more layers that are rotted, but the bottom layers are really good metal, and inside the chassis rails it's in perfect condition, as you can see on there. The good news about this is we're going to keep cutting this out and replace it with new metal, but you'll remember up there was some slight cracking on the top, and we had thought that it was blowing out from the inside, delaminating, water was getting in from the inside and causing this to happen, but we've come to the conclusion that actually the top layer just failed like that. Cracks occurred, water percolated in and started blowing out the layers and delaminating it from the top down. The good thing about that is that tiny little crack up there means we can probably just grind back a layer or so and then either plate it or just run a bead of weld. So we just nipped out to the shop to get a few more cutting discs, as we got through more than expected on that. But here we are, it's fully cut out now. But as you can see, inside's in really good nick. So now we're just gonna flap disc the edges, clean it up to bare metal, then make a cardboard template and start cutting the metal before we weld it back in.
Fabrication marking at its best.
All right guys, you will have seen we made a cardboard template for this piece that we need to weld in. Spent the last half an hour or so just mucking around and fettling and cutting this piece to fit.
We did it in one cut.
There we are, it's in, and now we're going to start tack welding it in. There's a couple of spots where we've got some big holes, but hopefully it will go in nicely and Lewis can lay a decent bead to hold it all in place. But up here, you'll see this crack. Now what we had hoped was this crack has got worse through the welding here. And what we had hoped was because this is between these two brackets, these two supports, we might just get away with that area. When we were taking off the top layers, it was very, very rotten on the top layer, but then you had probably 4 mil of decent metal underneath. So the thinking was, if there was just something quite small here, there was years and years of decent metal underneath. That isn't good enough based on what we want to do, so I am going to cut out these brackets so that we can get access in here. We'll cut this out and then put a plate in there and then weld these brackets back on. So I'm going to do that now. What a battle that was. Nothing in there was sort of large enough to properly use the angle grinder, so I had to use the Dremel. I'm gonna have to order some new Dremel bits because I think I just went through about 10, but there we go. The rot is out, and as you can see at the back, there is actually some decent metal, which wasn't actually the case before. It's not ideal under that cross member, but there's little I can do there. But I think this has got plenty more years of life in it, even with that. What we need to do now is we need to cut this rear cross member off and a lot of the leg of the chassis, because as you can see, it is pretty rusty and it looks worse in real life than on the camera. So we've got this replacement piece that Lewis is currently unpackaging, and then what we're going to do is take a number of measurements off the existing bit of chassis, off the new chassis, and start to try and mate it up perfectly. We will put the tub back on for the final fitment, just to make sure that everything's at the right length. So we want to keep as much of the existing chassis as possible, because on here, as you can see, the chassis rail will slide in where this is not welded up, and then we can join it all up together, and that will give it the most amount of strength possible. So we've measured this up. This is the cut line, similarly on that side. So now we've jacked the back up to hold it there. We don't actually have anything to hold that side beyond that rope, so Lewis will probably have to hold it for the final bit of the cut, but we're going to chop this back end off. Right guys, there it is, back end cut off. Not the world's straightest cuts along the bottom, but that was just purely because we didn't want to get up under it lying on our backs with the angle grinder. It's a very different story if you've got the vehicle on a lift. There we go, offered up. No idea if it's the right length or not now. There'll definitely be some trimming to do, but got it all offered up and just supported on that jack. And looks pretty good from where we're standing.
Right, so unfortunately when we were cutting this off, the camera didn't film anything, so I just wanted to talk through what we actually did. So we took an overall measurement from the back of the cross member up to basically the split line, which is to help you push it over the old. So what that means is, so we took it to this point here from the back edge, and we did that on the bottom and on the top. What that meant was, when we then measured the same distance off the old to here, it means that we've got about this much material left in case we cut it wrong, which we haven't got it absolutely dead straight. So that's going to slide inside here, and it means we've got that much room to play with. So we've got time and space to straighten things up if we need to. We're probably going to have to splay this a little bit more to actually push it on the full depth, but when we do, pushing it up to here means that it should match where the old one was sitting. Obviously we're still going to put the tub on to make sure everything lines up, but it gives us a pretty good starting point.
Right guys, a little bit breathless here as we've just been wrestling with that. You will have seen us trying it for the first time, offering it up with the tub on and with this top bracket, which is where studs come through and attach to the body. We are maybe 10 mil off on our first attempt, so that has worked really, really well. So we need to just tidy up our cuts at the back of the chassis, maybe take a little bit more off, try again, and this may have been a much simpler job than we thought. Right guys, we've just moved the bed forward again because we need to cut off a little bit from the chassis rails here, and whilst the bed's out of the way, what we'll do is we'll make a cut, we'll clean up this chassis area for the purpose of welding, similarly on this, and then we'll get it all ready. There we are, boys and girls. So at the back, as you can see, we've got it all lined up. Didn't have enough screws, bolts and nuts to hold it exactly where we wanted it, but if you look under here, all the gaps are right, the bolts are through the holes, everything is as level as a Defender has ever been. Underneath now, so as you can see, what we've done, we've just clamped this up, so that's going to be where our join is. The bottom we're going to have to do once we flip the chassis over. It's too difficult to hammer it flat and then for Lewis to weld upside down. But what we'll do is we'll get some tacks down the inside here, the outside on the other side of that rail, and then the same with the other rail. Take the body off because we've got the body perfectly where it needs to be. And then, yeah, take the body off and we can deal with the top, and then that'll be absolutely solid till we flip the chassis. Right guys, you will have just seen Lou welding. The tub was on, we've just removed it. Completely forgot to film again, not very good at this YouTube lark, but there we are. It is held in place, nothing shifted. Obviously the weight came up, which meant that the piece of wood from that jack dropped out and the tension on that jack dropped out, but the back didn't drop.
And the welds
so
I managed to get in, I think it held.
There we are, some decent welds there,
Average,
and in there. So yeah, now it's much easier for Lou to weld, much better access, and then we can start getting the top all in line and everything and making this bulletproof.
Right guys, I'm nowhere near a professional welder, and I've only picked up TIG in the last year, and right now I'm not going for something that looks really pretty. What I'm trying to do is melt and penetrate as much as possible to the old chassis that's there. I've achieved this, I think, pretty well. As you can see, I've welded it really quite hot. I'm running 130 amps. And I'm getting a load of metal in there as well, so I'm penetrating into the old, and the new is properly bonded. I mean, I don't think this is going anywhere. I'm going to do the same to the other side.
Right guys, so what I've been doing whilst Lewis was welding is I've been taking off these brackets here, over there, and the 2 that were in there. The reason we left them on before was 2 reasons. One, this is what lines the tub up to the chassis, and so we obviously needed to know exactly the distance when the tub was on to the rear of the chassis for the welding process. And also they're 8mm bolts, and the top of them was completely rotten to the point that even an 8mm spanner was just eating them alive. So what we did, we were advised by one of our subscribers to get ourselves some Irwin bolts, and these things are incredible. If you guys have rusty bolts that you simply can't get off, and you've got any kind of access issues where a grinder or a Dremel won't get in, get yourself a set of them. They just rip them straight off, except for this one, which it ate, and one on that side, but now I can get in to cut them off. What we have started doing is on our website, busterbuilt.com. On our shop page, we've put links to some of the tools that we use that we find really helpful. So if you guys want to head over there, there'll be a link to things like the Irwin bolts and some other tools we use. And there you have it, guys, all welded in, all repaired over there. Just welded in another little plate over there, and this chassis is really coming together. So the next job on the next video will be to flip the chassis over, well, get the axles off, flip the chassis over, inspect the bottom, hope it's in good condition and that no further welding needs doing, weld up the bottom of the new replacement, and then, yeah, just progress from there. It'll be paint before long. All right, guys, we're going to leave it there for today. It's been a lot of hard work, but real progress has been made, and I can't believe how well that replacement piece has come out. It's almost perfect, like from factory.
Thanks for watching, and if there's any of the products that we've been using that you like, check out our website and you'll have direct links to Amazon to buy them. Otherwise, if you haven't subscribed, click the button and the bell, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.